Okay, we are live, but we shall let it breathe, baby. Gotta let it breathe. And then we will fire up this fresh episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. We are good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is the deputy editor of milehighhuddle.com, Zack Kelberman. Zack, I don't know that it should maybe come as so much of a surprise to anybody, but Billy Turner says the Broncos are not interested at this time in bringing him back. But also, am I looking all like slow mo, or is that just on my side? But he also claims, Zach, he's 100% healthy from that knee and in basically the best shape he's ever been. Do you buy it? And what about the Broncos? They still need some tackle depth.
Well, I mean, he was trying to figure out why the Broncos are not interested and trying to wonder why he hasn't got signed. Remember in season one, I love making the reference when I can, of The Sopranos, Chad, when the Chris and Adriana met Massive Genius and they were trying to pass off the rap album, and they went to Hesh, and Hesh listened to it, and he said, it's just not good. That's what I could say about Billy Turner. He just wasn't very good when he was on the field. Obviously, doesn't help when he's injured, but he came into the Broncos system coming off an injury, coming off a failed physical. They knew what they were getting, but I wasn't that impressed when even he was healthy. He is a guard to me at heart, and he's a backup lineman at best, a lot like Dalton Reisner.
Yeah, I don't know. He was never all that exciting in his first stint with the Broncos, 2016 through 18. And I think you and I both were a little bit surprised at the contract he got from Green Bay. But there he went, came back, $2.5 million. Here's a question for you, tinfoil hat. Did the Broncos know Billy Turner was damaged goods when they signed him? 1 year, 2.5 million, whatever it was, something close to that. Do you think they knew and that George Payton was willing to look past it because of the bromance between Turner and Nathaniel Hackett?
And also Justin Houghton and the whole collective there. I may be the case where they didn't know the extent of Billy Turner's injury, but then I'm thinking to myself how he was cut from Green Bay with that failed physical, but Nathaniel Hackett was there all along. He should have known.
And I got to remind you of one other thing. Hackett himself said Billy Turner is one of his best friends in the world.
I mean, that's probably the answer then. You know, he went to George Payton and said, listen, George, I promise you I'm going, sticking my neck out for this guy. You sign him, we'll get good return. But the Broncos got nothing. When Cameron Fleming is showing better than you in pass protection, you have a major problem.
He did not show up till week 6 as in the starting lineup, played 4 games, average to subpar right tackle, had a setback, missed another 4 straight games, and then finished the season, Zach, at right tackle. Meanwhile, so I guess what I'm getting at here is it's no huge shock. The Broncos are telling him we're not interested at this time in bringing you back. But meanwhile, Cameron Fleming actually played, even though outside perception is what it is. He played pretty well as a swing guy that was asked to do a lot of on the fly stuff for the Broncos last year. It would not surprise me that if Cameron Fleming lingers into, let's say, into the summer beyond the draft, which I'll be surprised if it happens, but if he does, I would be shocked if the Broncos didn't bring him back. I guess it is a different coaching staff, so that's a factor here. But Fleming seems to me he's not a guy that you, Zach, ideally are like, hey, we're good. We got him as our starter. But when your starter goes down, you're glad that dude is waiting in the wings.
I mean, I guess. I guess you can be glad, but it says something when the Broncos have 3 linemen, Cameron Fleming, Dalton Reisner, and Billy Turner all available still. I don't know if it's when they join the Broncos, they become radioactive or untouchable, but it says something that maybe they just weren't good enough. Maybe the film was not good enough, and I think that explains why they haven't got another contract.
Lots of little stories that I want to get to tonight, little bits of news that we want to catch all of Broncos country up on. But first, some hellos, some thank yous, some super chats. Starting with Larry No Filter. What's up? Thank you for the super chat, Larry. He says, evening, gents. Billy Turner, I would probably pass unless it's for the cheap. Heard a report that the Broncos were in the mix for DJ Fluker. Thoughts, Zach? You want to see the former Alabama Crimson Tide. What was he, like, top 10 pick of the Chargers, if memory serves? You want to see him come to Denver?
Well, first of all, Larry, I haven't heard that, and if I did, I would have written that up because it's so damn dry right now. So pass that forward in the comments if you can, if it's a reputable report, and we'll be sure to cover that in extensive detail. I did read that DJ Fluker is making a comeback. Oh my god! That's the Michaela bomb that I'm turning
What
the
the
color
Sam
of the
Hill?
message. Wow.
Holy smokes. What the frick? Michaela with an all-timer right here.
What do you even say, Michaela? Thank you.
I think it's something like 6 or 7 individuals ever have maxed out the YouTube super chat limit in an individual super chat. And the Duchess, um, she may have done it before. She's done many. She's in the 200 club, 300 club. Something's telling me, my memory's telling me this is not the first time. But either way, Michaela, so very generous of you. We love you. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
you,
Michaela. Wow.
especially when things are slow as far as the news cycle is concerned, and Broncos fans start getting a little bit sleepy as far as really caring what the news and rumors might be. This really helps us. Believe it. This really helps myself, Zach, Scott. So love you so much, Michaela. She says, Zach, and then I'll serve it over to you. I don't know if it would be bad having Turner for depth at a veteran minimum, just in case of injuries. Much love. Love you so much, Michaela.
I I don't know what to say. I was trying to think of my last thought about DJ Fluker. Then I saw Michaela, and it just blows me away. Thank you so much, Michaela. And you might be right, just to have that depth. He knows the team. He knows some of the players around him. It wouldn't hurt, but if I had my druthers, I'd want the Broncos to draft a tackle and let Sean Payton kind of pick newer and fresher groceries. But Ballin is damn sure right. You're getting all the love in the comments, Michaela, from Richard here as well, and you definitely deserve it. Thank you so much. It's amazing.
Love it. Love you so much. And because of this, we're raffling 2 jerseys. You guys can thank Michaela for this. We're going to raffle 2 jerseys to the top 10 finishers in the month of March on YouTube tonight. And then, of course, we'll raffle one for Facebook, our biggest supporters on Facebook. So Michael is the Duchess. He's saying here, the Duchess of the MHH pod, indeed. And she's more than that. She's a friend and someone whose insight and takes on Broncos football that we all value here at MHH. So love you, Michaela.
I just love the community getting hype for Michaela, getting hype for us. Everyone just like we're so tight in around here, and it's so good to see each and every day. Really quickly, going back to Fluker, Chet, I want to get your input. I mean, I did see that he's losing a bunch of weight and he wants to get back into the NFL. How would you feel about the Broncos going after him?
Nah, miss me on that. Miss me on that. I just think that if you're going to make other veteran additions, get someone who's a little bit more I don't know what's a good word for it, polished, in someone who's been playing at a relatively high level of late, not someone who you're having to try to rehabilitate, get back into shape, get
Yeah.
any of that. Miss me on that. The Broncos don't have time for that at this stage. They got to hit the ground running with Sean Payton. So, who knows if he ends up getting back into shape and can really prove himself. I guess I'd be open to it. But as of today, I just think there are probably better options out there for the Broncos.
Yeah, they've worked out a bunch of tackles and visited with them throughout the pre-draft process. I wouldn't be surprised if they used a fairly high pick on a tackle to solidify that spot. Thank you again, Michaela, though.
Love you so much. Before we get back to the chat, though, it is time, and lots of topics, by the way, tonight that we are going to be getting to, including Drew Lock's semi passive aggressive poke at the Denver Broncos. I want to get everybody's take on this, Zach's take. It's going to be fun. But first, we've got some jersey raffles to announce. And before we get to that, we're going to show you how the top 10 finished in the month of March on YouTube. This is our super chat superstars. First things first, you got to know the rules. All right. It's always been we take the top 5 finishers in the month of super chat. That's cumulative. That's total. And then their names go in a hat. We raffle draw. They get a Broncos jersey of their choice. It's a thank you from myself, Zach, from all the dudes, Scott, for the support. It's a small thank you. And then we decided in March to open things up a little bit on YouTube and include the top 10 finishers in the raffle, but it's weighted. So, in other words, whoever's at slot number 10 who finished slot number 10, they're probably not going to have, or not probably, they're not going to have as many tickets in the hat, so to speak, as whoever finished at number 1. So there is that fairness doctrine there. But here's how it finished. Here's how it finished in the month of March. Let me get this banner off the screen. You've got Ethan, the DWI guys, just chopping wood, number 1. The Lady D, Deanna Hendry, number 2. Renardo at 3. That's a solid top 3. And then the Duchess, Michaela, she leapfrogged a few people to get into the top 5 at the 11th hour. She's a clutch performer. That's Michaela. When the chips are down, she rises to the occasion. GLP, the swashbuckler himself, and how fitting it is that both Michaela and Gary are right there, 4 and 5, because that's who we got to hang out with, red carpet style, at the meet and greet last year. And then FA at 6, Naj at 7, Gyla Maples at 8, and D-Dub, our very dear friend Dale in Hawaii, at 9, Sambam at 10. And you can see the arrows of the superstars who really had to who not had to, but really climbed the rankings toward the end of the month. So hats off to each and every one of you. Thank you so much. If whether it's a 99-cent super chat or like you saw from Michaela tonight, that level of generosity, it all means the world to us, and it matters greatly for us in keeping the lights on and keeping these pods coming every single night, 7 nights a week. So love and respect to each and every one of you. But here's the winners. Okay, you ready? Gyla against some pretty stiff odds. Gyla Maples is the initial winner of the top 10 super chat jersey giveaway. So Gyla, Scott, I don't know if we've seen Gyla in the chat yet. I haven't really looked at the chat this evening, but if you guys see Gyla, or if Gyla's in the chat, we need you to shoot us an email with your shipping address, what jersey you want, and the size, obviously. But make sure you go to the Broncos store and check that it's in stock. We've had that problem, I want to remind you. And then the second jersey, Michaela Parker, she gets a jersey. On Facebook, Howie frickin' Day was the winner for the month of March. So, Zach, this is, and Howie, you got to email us, bro. If you're hearing this now, if we don't see it tonight, we'll keep an eye out for you and make sure to let you know. But again, email, address, what jersey you want, and size. We'll get that rolling. But much love and respect to our entire community.
They're amazing. I go into each and every podcast saying, I can't be more impressed and I can't be more humbled, and yet y'all surprise me each and every time. Michaela, I'm still tongue-tied from your amount of generosity and how consistent you are each and every single pod. Thank you so much. It really goes a long way. Every single interaction that we have, it doesn't have to be a certain amount or anything like that. Just every interaction we have on the podcast, we definitely live for.
Very lucky. We are very grateful, very lucky, very fortunate, and we pinch ourselves seriously every day that we have this community and that we have such great friends and supporters within it that help make it possible in more ways than one. So love you very, very much. Just don't forget, guys. And Michaela, you can just DM me what jersey you want. Let's get it rolling. But don't forget to send your emails. That's to Gyla and that's to Howie frickin' Day. Okay. All right, Zach, back into some news here. And really quick, though, shout out David McElrath, jumped in early with a super chat. Much love and respect to you, big dog. He's saying, Buckham ×2, MHH for life, Broncos for life, from the Papa Bear himself. All right, dude, love it. Mike, you're the man, dude. Seriously, your support, another exemplar, another obvious evidence of how lucky we are. Zach, myself, Scott, everyone here at MHH. So much love and respect. Zach, did you by chance see the article, what Drew Lock, it's an article I wrote, and in full transparency, I would never lie to you guys. I would never try and steer you wrong. This might not be an article I'm writing if it's January or if it's even February, Zach. It might not be an article I'm writing. Definitely I'm not, probably, if it's the season. But when things start getting slow and you see things on the news wire that you might not normally want to cover, but you're like, what else am I going to grab? What else do I want to bring to Broncos fans' attention? So I wrote up Drew Lock, right? And basically, here's what he said, all right? It's nothing too earth-shattering, but in case you guys missed it, the Seahawks re-signed him. 1-year deal, $4 million. And here is what he said upon returning to the Seahawks. Quote, I feel like I learned more in this last year. I didn't play, but I learned so much from being with Shane Waldron, being with Pete Carroll, hearing how they talk football and situational football and how to handle a locker room. Everything those guys taught me last year. Again, I'm excited to be able to come back and be here for another year and learn more from them. Close quote. So, Zach, it's maybe a small poke at the Broncos. I learned more in my 1 year on the bench in Seattle than I did 3 years as a starter or whatever in Denver. But how are you feeling about Drew Lock getting his getting a modest extension or a modest 1 year deal from the Seahawks?
Well, I think I'm taking what he said at face value. He never struck me as an overly petty guy or an immature guy. I think he's genuine in what he said about Seattle. And looking at it from a human point of view, they took him in, Chad, and he felt wanted there, unlike in Denver where he never felt wanted. But notice he didn't mention Geno Smith. He mentioned the coaches around him. And that was a huge thing for him. He had success under a certain coach who was more of a Waldron type in Rich Scangarello. And then they went away from that to hire Pat Shermer. And that was the downfall of all downfalls for Drew Lock. So I am happy for him. You know, he doesn't play for the Broncos anymore. So we've pumped off the, let him hate and all that. But I do hope he has success in his career. And even from afar, I'll be rooting for him to get his chance.
I'm just happy, Zach, to see Drew Lock derangement syndrome begin to dissipate a little bit.
Well, now it's rust derangement syndrome, so it's like take your pick.
Yep, and the only way to snap that derangement, clear it up, and
Win.
you got to win, baby. You got to win. But he did, for what it's worth, Zach, Drew Lock did say some kind things about Geno and basically just the situation there in Seattle. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it, because when he landed in Seattle as part of that trade, and we're like, all right, he's got to beat out Geno Smith. The Seahawks made it sound like John Schneider anyway, and some of the things he said in last August, and then some of the things he said after the news of this signing, that, Drew was like right there, and then he got the bug, right? He got the coof right before, literally, Zach, at the penultimate worst possible time. He got and it wasn't just, oh, I tested positive, I got to sit. He got really sick too. Like it laid him low for a bit. And then, of course, the Seahawks went with Geno, and then the rest is history, because he goes on to produce a phenomenal season, and Drew Lock is literally an afterthought.
I think if I'm Drew Lock, I'm thinking if Geno Smith can have this resurgence in his career, why can't I? I've landed in a pretty good spot, but I'm sure he talked nice about him. But in that quote that you first mentioned, he talked about the coaching around him, and that was always the biggest downfall, especially when your head coach openly hates you like Vic Fangio did. He was not a fan of Drew Lock and made that very, very clear. Whereas Pete Carroll, we don't like him around these parts, but he's a very player-friendly guy, and I can see why a quarterback like Lock would want to be there.
That's a good point, though. Who would have ever guessed, after he kind of flamed out with the Jets as a early second-round pick, that Geno Smith would have gone on that late into his career to pop and to bust like he did last year. So if he can do it, it means other quarterbacks can do it. So we'll see what the future holds for one Drew Lock. But hey, I'm just happy that he found himself a little paycheck. And it was quite a raise for him, too, for what it's worth, over what he was making as a former second-round pick. David Kilgore, appreciate your patience, big dog, and appreciate your support. Another one of our great longtime members of this community. And I can remember, David, going all the way back, we started doing our podcast as a live stream. Zach, if you remember, September of 2019, all right? Then that season ends, right? This was the Drew Lock rookie year. Everyone's feeling excited because, he finished 4-1 as a starter. We get into the offseason, and everyone can remember what happened there. Calamity. The pandemic hits. We don't even know if there's going to be football later that year. And so what we all had was each other to kind of get through the pandemic. A lot of people, of course, sitting at home, figuring out how to work from home, all these different challenges. And that's when, Zach, I can remember this guy finding us on YouTube, David Kilgore, and he's still rocking the neck gaiter, the MHH face mask, like a boss. So love it. And he's wearing the vintage Huddle Up podcast hat. So much love and respect, David. He says, I hope Denver goes after 2 Kansas State prospects, a running back Vaughn and a cornerback Brents. Both are good players. Zach, the Broncos definitely need some depth at corner, and they could use at least one more reliable running back.
Yeah, and they've actually scouted. I'm tracking the top 30 visits to see if I can discern a pattern of what the Broncos want to do. I definitely noticed cornerback on there, a lot of linebackers, defensive linemen, and tight end, surprisingly enough. I had a story about Luke Musgrave, the Oregon State tight end the Broncos are bringing in for a top 30 visit. I saw from Mike Kliss today, they're going to hold a top 30 with Michigan tight end Luke Schoonmaker. So they're kind of throwing darts all around the dartboard, and whatever position they land on, I think they're going to attack. But I would not mind either player that you listed there.
Gina Cooper, the Mini Cooper, as she her handle on Twitter, in the house with some support on Facebook. Love you. Thank you, Gina. The ladies of MHH, night in, night out, show out. Not only supporting what we're doing, but bringing great insight to the table and helping us keep the conversation alive every single night in the chat. Thank you, Gina. She says, wow, love the ladies representing Broncos country here with MHH. Let's go. Hats off to all the superstars as well. And that's what you are, Gina, as well as a superstar. So really appreciate you. Taylor Christensen, speaking of superstars, I mean, look at that YouTube profile pic. I don't know that I've seen too many things much prettier than a red Bridge the Gap LP that Taylor Christensen put in his YouTube profile pic. The dudes from Bridge the Gap will be really stoked to see that. I'll send him a screenshot. Thank you, bud. He says, can't rely on Billy Turner. Too injured. Time for new blood. Late draft. Use, I guess, a late round pick on a right tackle. Also, thanks for the signed album, Chad. MHH for life. Denver Broncos for life. Love the song My Creation. Very stoked to hear that, buddy. Thank you for the support. And thank you for waiting. Had to get all the dudes from Bridge the Gap. We live in Colorado. We live in Utah. Have to come together at one time. So we got it signed and all those orders out the door.
I agree with the premise of the first part, though. I'd rather pass up on Billy Turner and draft a tackle. Younger, cheaper, higher upside. Definitely the way to go.
Phil in Tucson. Love you, big dog. He's saying, evening priest, holy mackerel, Michaela, go Broncos. Love to Michaela. Hashtag Buckham. Phil, you're another one of our great members. So hope you're having a good evening. Hope you're feeling much, much better than that spell you went through not too long, not too far back. So really appreciate you, Phil. Zach, did you see the ridiculous? I had to write it up because, again, slow times. Okay, what are you going to do? Charge it to the game. But did you see the ridiculous CBS Sports article that listed the Broncos as one of 5 probable landing spots for Mac Jones, who the New England Patriots have reportedly flirted with the possibility of dealing, shopping him, dangling him. This guy, who was it?
Cody Benjamin, the writer.
That's right. Cody Benjamin listed of 5 teams, the Broncos as number 5. And I just had to kind of grab it and dunk on it and kind of laugh at it as I was typing up this article and reacting to it or whatever. But what were your thoughts on how, in what way, shape, or form would that make sense? Does this dude not understand at all? Like, even, I get it, Zach, you're not monitoring every single transaction the Broncos make because you cover the NFL national, but maybe just at least take a look at the salary cap and the Broncos draft situation as far as how many picks they have before you decide to connect Mac Jones to them as a potential landing spot.
My reaction is I shake my head so much I might as well have arthritis at this point, but I'm not surprised either, Chad, because no one knows what goes on with the Broncos outside of Denver, outside of those who cover the team. No one has a freaking clue. And he also mentioned the Raiders on that list when the Raiders went out and just signed their quarterback too, and I believe it was Brian Hoyer to back up who is it Jimmy G? Is the new Raiders starter there now? So
That's right. That's right.
There's no homework or research that goes into it. They take a quote unquote popular landing spot and they throw it out there and they hope that crap will stick. But the Broncos have their quarterback one. He makes $245 million. If you covered the NFL at large, which he does, you would know the Broncos paid Jarrett Stidham a pretty penny to be quarterback too. And you would also know, because of the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton acquisitions, the Broncos are bereft of draft capital. So with what picks are they going to be using to acquire Mac Jones? It literally makes zero sense. It's ridiculous.
It is. And it's, again, probably not something we're writing up at MHH if it's not the And this is particularly, Zach, for what it's worth. Like April's usually still a pretty hopping, busy month for us, as far as the off-season rhythms are concerned. Because even though the lion's share of free agency is traditionally in the books, by the time you get to April, there's still so much scrutiny and excitement, and you know, top 30 visits. Broncos are at that pro day scouting this person, whatever. And Broncos fans are following that diligently because they want to know what's going to happen in the draft. But I think this is the result, Zach, if we're being honest, of 2 straight years with the Broncos not having a first round pick. That really saps the joy and the anticipation, I think, from Broncos fans as far as the draft is concerned. And then you add insult to that injury and that no second round pick either. So it's been even slower trying to find things to write about. Lawrence, bro, it's because you guys rock. Hopefully my wife doesn't kill me. Very generous stars you're throwing down, bro. Seriously, you are a blessing, and we love all the takes that you bring every single night, big dog. So keep rocking, and who knows? Maybe that drawing in this month in April goes to Lawrence. We'll have to see how it shakes out. Og Garcia, Zach, that's a new name. I don't recognize that name, so welcome. Thank you for the support. Connect with us on Twitter. Saying, what's up, boys? Here from California. Broncos fan since I was 8 years old in 97. If we keep top draft picks, get a higher pick, what's the first position we draft? So if we keep 67, what's he asking? If we keep 67 or if we were to trade up somehow? I don't know. But regardless of exactly what he's trying to say, we do know he wants to know what's the first position, Zach, the Broncos draft this year.
I would have said offensive line, and it might be that way because they keep scouting a ton of them who are going to go in the third or fourth rounds. But it's got to be, I think, defensive line or linebacker, maybe secondary. They're in the position, maybe center if one's on the board. They don't really have to draft anyone for need, any position for need. They can take whoever the hell they want. It could even be a situation like last year where they took Nick Benito in the second round, Chad, and he wasn't going to be a day one starter. They took him to be an immediate backup. That might be the case with their top draft picks this year, but I think they hold on to them in the third round and they shore up a position in need. I'll say, just for the sake of conversation, center or defensive line.
Yeah. I am most concerned about center and edge, but also you got to throw in cornerback depth.
Right.
What's happening at safety? Because, I mean, what do we got there? We got Justin Simmons. We've got Caden Stearns. We've got PJ Locke brought back. And then depending on how you, or I guess I should say how the Broncos view Essang Bassey. But really, once you get past Simmons and Stearns, and even Stearns is kind of sketchy with his injury histories being so recent. It's an issue. Gonna have to figure that out. But I'm gonna answer Og. I'm gonna say I think it's gonna be a center or it's gonna be edge is probably the top priority. If we're just talking about what's the number one priority, the first time the Broncos go on the clock, and we're gonna be waiting a minute because it's not till pick 67, dadgummit. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's got to be. The deal they gave Kyle Fuller, the center, was like 1 year for $1.04 million. It was near veterans minimum, and I don't think they're as high on Lloyd Cushenberry as Sean Payton claims he is. So center could definitely be where they go at 67.
Plus, it's an easy out. Like the way Sean Payton communicated that Lloyd Cushenberry is our starter. What was it? We view him as our
that way. Yeah.
we view him as our starter. It's like, coach speak 101. Sean Payton is showing you how it's done. That doesn't commit the Broncos to Lloyd Cushenberry in any way, shape, or form. But I'll say it again. Even though I have misgivings, even though I would have some doubts, Zach, if Sean Payton ultimately has the entire offseason to make an upgrade, the entire NFL draft and college free agency to make an upgrade, doesn't, and Lloyd Cushenberry does end up being this team's starter, I'm going to remain at least neutral, cautiously optimistic, because I'm going to hashtag trust in Sean.
Yeah, but it's interesting the way they're going with this. I mean, I had the story today for the website that they've hosted or gonna host on a top 30 NC State guard Chandler Zavala, who is being projected as a third round pick. And you ask yourself, Chad, well, the Broncos just signed a left guard in Ben Powers. They have a right guard in Quinn Miners. If they take Zavala at 67, 68, who starts? What do they do there? Do they move Quinn Miners to center in that scenario? I start to wonder.
Indeed. And it's a fair point that Scott brings up too in our green room. Broncos haven't Sean Payton hasn't been able to sit down and meet with, hang out with, coach, get in a room with any of these guys yet. So that means I think, Zach, that we take it even more with a grain of salt. It right now it comes down to where are the investments, where are the commitments. Up front, you've got big dollars on Garrett Bowles. You've now got big dollars on Ben Powers. You've got a third round pick that you've developed at right guard in Quinn Miners, and then you've got a big contract for Mike McGlinchey. Those are where the commitments are. Center, you could argue as well the same logic that applies to Miners. The investment that has been made in him has also been made in Cushenberry because he's also a third round pick and he's also a guy that the team went through the trial and error learning curve to get him starters experience, but still, I don't know. I think that's something that gets addressed in the draft, but it's still a sketchy proposition, Zach, because it's not often that a team finds a center in the third round, even that ends up becoming a stud starter year one. Even Matt Paradis, who was a sixth round pick, he didn't become a starter till his second year. And of course, the Broncos went on to win a Super Bowl that year. But Keith Brugman in the house, bro. Love you, big dog. Appreciate you. And your Bridge the Gap LP was shipped out on Tuesday as well with all those other orders. So hopefully you got that by now. But he says, do you guys have issues with Geno Smith winning comeback player of the year? What did he come back from? Not being good enough? This is a fair point, and I've seen a lot of people question it. For example, Zach, when Peyton Manning won comeback player of the year in 2012, he had missed the entire previous season because of the neck surgeries and whatnot. And he had a phenomenal all-pro campaign, so he wins comeback player of the year. What's your answer for Keith?
It's a joke award, just like the Pro Bowl has become. Pretty much the only NFL award that matters is All Pro and those type of designations. But I saw something, the early favorite for this year's comeback player of the year, the season hasn't even started yet, is DeMar Hamlin. And I understand the story that he is, but he only missed 2 games and he was a backup player. So it's pretty much whatever player has the national storyline, whatever player is the fad among the blue checkmark brigade, that's who's going to win. I wouldn't take it all too serious.
Under the same logic, Russell Wilson could win comeback player of the year, right? Russell Wilson, if he goes on to have a Pro Bowl caliber signature season with Sean Payton, hey, give this cat comeback player of the year because he'd be coming back from a similar spot that Geno did, which is irrelevancy, right? That's really what we're talking about here. Michael says these Facebook stars are for all the winners of the MHH podcast Broncos jersey giveaway. You're so kind, brother. Appreciate you. Love you. And you've won a jersey or two in your time as well. And I just hope you know everybody appreciates you here at MHH, Mike. And our offer stands. We'd love to have you on the show at some point. We didn't have a guest for tonight because we wanted to be able to do the giveaway stuff. But Thursdays for the next couple of months is when we're trying to bring on our biggest supporters on Facebook and YouTube for Superstar segments. And even though everyone knows you quite well in the chat by now, Mike, you've never been on the show, and I'm sure people would love to see it. So think about it. Get back to us, bro. GLP, what's up, big dog? Thank you. Very generous. Another Mount Rushmore pivotal figure, the swashbuckler himself saying, yo, Chad, Zach, and Scott. I just want to say that even though you have Michaela and many other great friends supporting you, MHH needs all the support we can give to support the great pods we receive. Go Broncos, MHH for life. Very kind dude. And I mean, no check was sent to Gary for this super chat. This is genuine. And Zach, I think it's really cool just to see the pride and the ownership that people in our community take in the product that is being broadcast and streamed 7 nights a week, and we take that very seriously as a very very big responsibility. So I hope you guys know that. Love you, Gary.
Yes, thank you so much, Gary. And I'd be remiss not to mention Michael for apparently throwing down big boy stars, as Chad and
Yes.
Scott like to say. We got the
Yes.
signal from Scott. So definitely appreciate you, Michael, as always. Your support each and every pod is incredible.
Definitely. Love you guys. Um, Phil saying, I read we had an interview with Darnell Wright. Your thoughts? Zach, have you read this?
I have not, but that's not too surprising. The Broncos would be interested.
Let me do a cursory research on this real quick, Phil, and I will circle back.
I just don't know if he'll be there by the time the Broncos pick. I see a case for him to go in the first round, especially if there's a run on tackles. If they want him, they might have to trade up for him, and they just can't do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm remembering this now. They did talk to him at the combine, right? So, for whatever that's worth, they did speak with him, offensive tackle, Tennessee Volunteers. So, um, it's again, depth is the biggest concern. I think the Broncos have as formidable a bookend tackle duo as any team in the NFL. So you go to war tomorrow, you're feeling pretty dang good about that. But Garrett Bowles missed time last year with an injury. You just never know. Mike McGlinchey, he's a veteran. He's not old, but he's to a point where, let's face it, he's no spring chicken, and he's always been a very physical player. So you just never know. And I'm knocking on wood as I say this. You need one solid number 3 to be able to swing, and we'll see. Keith saying, Phil, with the mic drop of 1,000 stars. Yeah, everybody's going off tonight. Usually when people go off, it's during the superstar segments. We didn't have one tonight, but geez, man, we really love and appreciate you guys.
Thinking about it, I feel like if the Broncos take a tackle fairly high, that would mean that Garrett Bowles will either be traded or they'll move on in short order the next year. So if they don't need a tackle right now, to the question about Darnell Wright, they have 2 starters, but I feel like how they address that position, taking one in the 6th round for a swing insurance policy is one thing, but using, let's say, 67 or 68 on a tackle, that would not be great things for Mr. Garrett Bowles.
I'm excited to see what the future holds for Bowlesy, and he still hasn't had the most fortuitous. No, that's the wrong word. He hasn't had the best stability as far as offensive line coaches. Although I guess when you say how long was it, 3 years that Munchak was with him. So I guess there is that. And if you owe anything, if Bowles owes anything to his development and turning the corner and getting that big extension that he got from John Elway, which, by the way, I do want to talk about. I at least want to offer my tribute to John Elway tonight before we sign off. I guess Mike Munchak, maybe even Dalton Reisner, deserves a little bit of credit for Bowlesy turning the corner.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like he benefited from that 2020 season where officials were literally instructed not to call holding so often as a means to improve the game. So that's why a lot of Bowles' penalties went down. But you saw in the years following that he's been still a little inconsistent, a little unreliable. When he's good, he's good. But when he's bad, boy, is he bad. And I don't know how that's going to fly in a Sean Payton offense.
The thing too about Wright, he's probably not going to be around by the time the Broncos are on the clock. Let's just remember that too. He's expected to be a day 1, early day 2 pick, but you never know. You never know. But Zach, I want to talk about this because we're at 38 minutes. We don't need to go to the full 59 unless people are going, or full 60 minutes unless people are going crazy in the chat. What is the John Elway's lasting legacy as he officially parted ways with the Broncos over this last few days? Going to still make himself available to George Payton and Greg Penner if they need anything from him. He'll pick up the phone and be of service or whatever. Of course, he's going to say that, but this is really the end. This is John Elway riding off for good this time, right? No more hopes of maybe someday coming back as a GM and then maybe someday coming back as part owner. This is it. John Elway, his time involved with the Broncos. I mean, he's always going to be a pivotal face of the franchise forever. He'll be known as that first face etched in the Bronco Mount Rushmore, but he's done. He's parting ways. It's a new era. What's the lasting legacy of John Elway, the GM?
Well, I'm going to give it to y'all real. And I understand he's a Denver legend. I understand he's the Duke. They should probably build the statue outside the stadium for him. I think he's earned that right. He did way more good than bad, Chad, as Broncos GM. You're talking about 4 division titles. They went to 2 Super Bowls. They won one. He built arguably the best offense of all time. He built one of the best defenses of all time, one of the best free agent classes in 2014 of all time. But his biggest mistake was not whiffing on quarterbacks. His biggest mistake was whiffing on coaches. And I feel like he'd still be today Broncos GM if he would have hired, let's say, Kyle Shanahan instead of VJ in 2017. That was his fatal flaw. It wasn't talent evaluation. It wasn't necessarily even drafting. He was starting to get better. You felt by the time, Chad, that he stepped down in place of George Payton, that Elway was starting to get in the groove of the whole GMing thing. He was becoming more cerebral. There were more layers to him as an exec. But not picking that coach ultimately is the reason why we're reading the headline and talking about it, that his contract is up and he's going on to greener pastures.
Well, it's like that, would you rather, or, similar type thing where would you be willing to go through 7 years of darkness if you, here's like right now, if I were to say, would you be willing to suffer 7 years of losing and being in the NFL doldrums if Sean Payton could deliver you 5 consecutive AFC West crowns, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and 1 world championship? Would you take that as recompense? Would you be willing to pay that as the price? 7 years of insignificance. And that's really what happened. John Elway, if nothing else, all right, you can pick holes at his ability as a talent evaluator. And there were people when the Broncos first hired him to come in and serve as the top football executive that said he's not a football guy, that he's going to fail miserably, because any other time it had been tried in the past, including with Dan Marino with the Dolphins, of former high profile quarterbacks coming into a front office role, it hadn't worked out well. And really, it hadn't worked out well for a GM, former player, around the league other than Ozzie Newsome. And people said, no, some of these naysayers, no, John Elway's going to fall flat on his face. And, he's kind of walked that razor's edge, Zach, in his first year, because he inherits Tim Tebow, hires John Fox, though, which was a great stabilizing force, makes a great decision, one of his first decisions as the top executive in the draft, holding the highest draft pick the Broncos had ever qualified for, number 2 overall, makes the right decision, takes Von Miller. That was a domino that would end up having great effect later on down the road when it fell. And then, hey, you went out and you won the Peyton Manning sweepstakes. Maybe no one else could have done that but John Elway. And that's really, at that stage, obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit when I say, if that was all he did was bring you Von Miller and Peyton Manning, that probably would have been enough. But he did a lot more than that. And it resulted in 5 great seasons for the Broncos, 5 straight AFC titles. Again, 2 Super Bowl berths, 1 victory. And after that, you're right, Zach. He couldn't get the head coach right, and everything trickled downhill from that as far as quarterback swings and misses. But I think John Elway deserves a lot of love and respect. And this is coming from a guy that is biased. Okay. I'm a guy who, as a kid, I had John Elway posters on my wall. When I'd go throw the ball with my friend Zach, I pretended I was John Elway. That was me. So there is a bias there. But I think the farther you get from Super Bowl 50, I think the more his legacy will be, hey, he brought you 2 rings as a player. He brought you another one as a GM. And then, of course, the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, Zach, the iconic moment that you catch me at the right time and I'm thinking about it, it gives me chills. This one's for Pat. Hats off to the Duke of Denver. That's what I say. Much love and respect to John Elway. Go enjoy those grandkids, big dog. Go enjoy that, the means that football, the life that football has provided for you. Now it's time to go enjoy that, big dog.
Yeah, Mike was bringing up the fact that, well, isn't Joe Ellis the one who stepped over Elway to nix the Kyle Shanahan thing? Even if you excuse him for that, and I feel like the search process wasn't inclusive enough to begin with. They interviewed 3 guys in that coaching cycle, VJ and Kyle Shanahan included. They still messed up the 2019 coaching search when they hired Vic Fangio. Wasn't Frank Reich a part of that search, Chad, if I remember correctly? There was a couple younger coaches in there as well. He was starting to go on the right track, and then they went away from it to go back to the defensive-minded, old curmudgeon type. So for sure, let's say if you would have hired Frank Reich in 2019, Frank Reich and Drew Lock would have worked well together. Vic Fangio and Drew Lock, not so much.
For what it's worth, though, okay, John Elway wanted Gary Kubiak as his head coach from the time he took the job. Obviously, it wasn't in the cards at first because Kube was currently employed by the Houston Texans as their head coach. So he went with another retread guy that had coached a team to a Super Bowl, and John Fox. And then at the first possible moment, realistically, where he could actually get Kube, he did. And that was his plan, right? They were going to ride off into the sunset together. They were going to kick this can as far down the road as they could, and it was going to be great. And it looked like that was the direction it was heading, Zach, with a Super Bowl in their first year together. The next year, you lose Peyton Manning, but you still go win 9 games with a Simeon and Paxton Lynch quarterback combo. And then he just steps down out of the blue. And so, in one respect, it's like, hey, it's hard for me to fault John Elway when that was his plan, and the plan was working and probably would have continued to work. But Gary Kubiak threw a wrench in it. Carell, Alan, thank you. Very generous. Appreciate the super saying, sending some love to MHH from a newbie. Connect on Twitter. We'll keep the conversation going there. Carell says, so happy I found you guys, and so are we. Thank you very much, my friend.
Is it Carol or Carell?
Maybe Carell. I don't know. You're probably right. Probably Carol.
Welcome regardless, though. Thank you.
Antonio in the house with a generous super chat. Another one of our superstars that goes back a long time, but it's been a minute, big dog. Been a minute. Thank you very much, though. Very generous super chat saying, sup, guys. Super stoked to finally see what a disciplined Broncos team looks like. Hashtag Broncos country. Yeah, it's going to be really cool to see the trickle-down effect that Sean Payton has on every facet of the team.
It's an interesting debate, though, in terms of blaming John for the coaching search or, exonerating him because of the factors of Gary Kubiak and also Joe Ellis. But why, if you had success with Kubiak, you had success with John Fox, and if you were in an offensive-minded league, why would you go the other way for an unproven defensive coordinator who had nothing to show for it and no resume? Regardless, if they couldn't get Kyle Shanahan, their selection of VJ was so bad, and it showed in the wash.
Yep, that was one that, look, he paid the price for it, and so did the Broncos. That was a massive, colossal swing and a miss, mystifying to this day. I mean, a lot of times, Zach, even when it's a bad decision, it starts making at least more sense in retrospect the farther away you get from it. But in the case of that decision, especially considering who else was available, I mean, look, okay, Joe Ellis didn't like the idea maybe of Kyle Shanahan, or maybe even too, Zach, John wasn't quite ready to offer him full like sign off control, not as GM, but like any personnel moves I want to make, I'll make sure you sign off on that before we make them. But okay, fine. You don't hire Kyle Shanahan, Dave Tobe. Then hire Dave Tobe, a guy who, maybe his coaching resume doesn't come from a sexy offensive coordinator side of things or defense or whatever, but would have been better than VJ. Grover in the house. Thank you, big dog. He says, I cried after our first Super Bowl, and I cried when Elway retired. I'm not crying today, but you can tie all 3 of our rings to Elway. Yeah. It's hard to get too emotional over John Elway officially parting ways just because these last 7 years have been so just hard to deal with, hard to handle. He bears the brunt of that. But still, because of his impact on the Broncos, both as a player and a GM, that's what I want to focus on. I'd rather focus on that because it's not like he just came in as a GM, Zach, and did some good things and lasted 10 years. No, dude, we're talking iconic, pivotal accomplishments as a GM. I'll pull up the article I had if we get enough time tonight. But some of the accomplishments this dude had, finding free agents in the college free agent or Pro Bowlers in the college free agent ranks, street free agent ranks. Let's see, unrestricted. I'm missing one. This dude like has a pretty impressive resume. I'll see if I can find it.
He's the most iconic figure in Denver sports history. I think, bar none, he's a legend. I'm just telling you, his downfall came with picking the wrong head coach. And even if you exonerate him for Kyle Shanahan, you know who available that coaching cycle as well? Some guy named Sean McVay. He wasn't even on the Broncos' radar. They never even interviewed him. So that was a whiff. They also badly whiffed in 2019 going against the grain with Vic Fangio. It was not the quarterback, guys. I guarantee you, if somehow they would have landed Kyle in 2017, they would have made do with Trevor Siemian. It would have been done.
Renardo, holy smokes. A 200 club super throwing down.
Thank you,
Not the
Renardo.
first time that Renardo has been this generous, but hats off, dude. Shiny ball dome for you, big dog. Thank you, Renardo. Seriously, saying just checking in with my Mile High fam. Holy smokes, dude. Tonight has been fire in the chat. Renardo, love you, big dog.
I mean, literally speechless. Renardo, you do this a lot. You and Michaela and so many other people here. You guys are literally incredible. Thank you so, so much. If you have a question and comment, Renardo, please get it in the chat. We'll be sure to read it out.
If you see me looking down, guys, I want you to know it is not out of disinterest in what's happening. Lately, the platform that we use to stream, it's called StreamYard, and they're great. But lately, there's been a problem. Anytime we're streaming, if I go to open up another tab, it bogs down the stream, and then I start delaying on camera and whatnot. So now, until they get this figured out, when I search something that normally I would just be doing it in the background on my tab, where looks like I'm looking at the camera, I have to do it from my phone right now. But I'm pulling this up, Zach, the accomplishments of John Elway, the GM, and I want to get to it. But again, I just want to tip my cap to Renardo. You are a stud. Thank you very much, big dog. Well, if I can get this to pull up right, tonight's not my day. It looks like 10 elite accomplishments. Okay, ready? I wrote this, Zach, 2019. Let's see what it looks like in hindsight. Okay, 8. Now this is not fully accurate because again, this was written, you know, many years back. So this is 19. He went on to, what was it? George Payton's first year was 21. So he had 3 more classes here of free agents. But John Elway, 18 Pro Bowlers as of 2019. And we know it's been more than that because this doesn't count. No, it does count Philip Lindsay. But here's just one example. One quick tribute for John Elway. Elway 7 seasons then, all right, 2019, as a GM. He has signed or extended contracts of 18 players who have combined for 37 Pro Bowls, including Philip Lindsay, Casey Kreider. I mean, you got guys like Peyton Manning, Champ Bailey, Easy, DeMarcus Ware, Keith Talib, Von Miller, Elvis Dumerville, Ryan Clady, Demaryius Thomas, Chris Harris Jr., Julius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and there's more. He's also over the last his first 7 years, the only NFL GM to acquire future Pro Bowlers through the draft, street free agency, unrestricted free agency, and college free agency. So we could get more farther into the weeds on his accomplishments, but again, that's what I choose to focus on with regard to Elway parting ways with the Broncos is the great things that he accomplished. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to end, Zach, his tenure as a front office guy in the same top of the mountain way, right off into the sunset that he did as a player, but still, much love and respect to the Duke of Denver.
Yeah, and a partridge in a pear tree. I mean, listing off his accomplishments, you need a lot of breath because he did so much during his time as GM. Again, 4 division titles, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and 1 Super Bowl win. I think that's pretty legendary, if I do say so myself. And finally, his parting gift was giving the Broncos George Payton as GM, handing the reins to someone as respected as Payton is. So much love to you, John, and we hope you enjoy retirement.
All right, guys, we're about out of time tonight. Michael Ronquillo, thank you so much, bro, for your generosity and all that you do in our community. You are a stud. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from you after tonight's stream on Twitter, as is your way. And we love seeing that every single night, big dog. So thank you, Mike. Scott, who else are we maybe missing out on? Chris, thank you, bud. Appreciate that. Still the best in the business, Chad, Zach, and Scott. You're a prince. CC. I need 200 CCs of Chris Chance's rocking the chat tonight. Thank you, big dog. Zach, unless there's any other burning topics, though, I think let's maybe sign off for tonight. We'll circle back on Sunday.
That was a blazing episode and a very humbling episode of the MHH podcast. And I say that in the best way possible. If you haven't done so yet, follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some of our merch, Bucka merch, the hat I'm wearing, Chad's wearing, any of our podcast hosts are rocking, go to mhhmerch.com and check it out when you have some time. And also, if you haven't, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Be sure you're liking that page and following that page. If you're on Instagram, follow us at mile_high_huddle. If you haven't, guys and gals, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every month. But if anything, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Much love and respect. And by the way, I'm dying to know too, Keith's question here. When does Zach's album drop? Listen, I'm a man of many talents. I could put an EP together, Zach, of some sick beats, right? Get the 808 beats rolling. Then you just got to write some dope lyrics and figure out what your flow is going to be. We can have Scott playing the bass. Boom, 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 boom. We can come up with something dope, dude. So what's your answer for Keith?
Stay tuned, Keith. I got something in the works. I've been in the lab lately, so hope you like it.
The Beat Laboratory. We've
That's
been
right.
putting our heads together. It's going to be dope. It's going to be the first ever football podcaster writing duo to become platinum selling hip hop artists.
Cross genre too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it'll be like Rage Against the Machine meets Lil Peep meets I don't know, who do the kids love? Who's your favorite artist of all time, Zach?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'd say probably Lil Wayne. But I
Okay.
was thinking more along the lines of like Linkin Park and Jay-Z when they did that mashup. That's You and I. So
Yes.
we'll get it pumping.
But even that mashup, you know what? They owe that inspiration to Aerosmith. Scott will remember this, and Run DMC getting together in the 80s for, was it Walk This Way? It was Walk This Way. No, what was it? What was it? Oh, what was it? Wasn't, are you sure? Hold on. Scott knows this. What was it? What song was it? Predates Beastie Boys. Maybe it was right around the time Beastie Boys became a thing. It's not coming through. I don't know. The chat probably knows. What was it? Yeah. Well, see, Keith's Walk This Way. Keith's saying Walk This Way, dude. All right. Anyway, guys, love you. Appreciate you. Shout out to these great Super Chat superstars tonight. Larry, No Filter. David McElrath. The Duchess. Holy smokes. Michaela Parker. Love you. David Kilgore. Taylor Christensen. Love your profile pic, big dog. Og Garcia. Gary Palmer. Carol Allen. Antonio Aragon, Grover, Renardo, Chris Chances, and then on Facebook, Michael Ronquillo, big dog throwing down, Phil McLaughlin, Lawrence Rivera, Keith Brugman, Gina Cooper. Much love and respect. Love you guys.
Yeah, for Lil Chad, this is Lil Zach. We definitely thank you for tuning into tonight's podcast, and thank you all so much for your generosity, Michaela, Renardo, every single person. We're back on Sunday evening. Have a great start to your weekend. We'll see you then. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.